Hi everyone, hope you're having an amazing weekend. Welcome to Metis Fest. And today we're going to be talking about scaling usability in Web3. My name is Jose, like Elena said, but before we start, I would love all my panelists to introduce yourselves. Dan, you can go first.
Sure. Testing. Look at Jose though, man. You got like the deepest voice in DeFi. It's hard to follow. Dan from DexPools here. I'm a co-founder and CPO. I'm super glad to be here. The Metis ecosystem has been amazing to us. Super easy team to work with, great tech, more than you can ask for, great drinks too. So yeah, glad to be here.
Hi guys, my name is Alexander Schull. I'm one of the co-founders of Rome Blockchain Labs. We've began actually working with Metis over the past couple of weeks, and I must say, hands down, one of the best blockchain foundations we have ever interacted with. So hands-on, so engaging, and the philosophy behind Metis is actually quite in line with what Rome Blockchain Labs organizationally is building, which is, we're looking to change the way people understand finance, and you start that with decentralization.
And once again, I am Elena Sinelnikova. I am a CEO of Metis.
I'm Wesso. With Beefy. We're one of the largest cross-chain protocols. So we launched on Metis quite a while ago. The community was just overwhelmingly positive about our launch. They actually were the ones who kind of willed us onto the blockchain. So it was awesome to see the community connection there. Such an active community at Metis, and then such an active community at Beefy that made the protocol go ahead and launch on Metis. But yeah, I'm excited to discuss about usability and how we can continue to work together.
Thank you.
Let's make some noise for my panelists. So if we're talking about scaling usability in Web3, okay, we've seen a lot of kind of like catalyst for adoption in crypto. We saw the DeFi summer, we saw NFTs last year. Elena, what would you think is going to be the next big wave, big move that is going to bring a lot of people into crypto?
Thank you, Jose. So something that we're exploring, and that's what I think is going to be next big, is the adoption of blockchain technology by different organizations. And right now, we are preparing the DEC, which is Decentralized Autonomous Corporation infrastructure for them to onboard easily. We are interviewing different startups on their needs, because we need to go from the user needs, from the organizational needs. So what they have, they always struggle. So first, when we just create a startup, you struggle with the funding, and you struggle with how to pay employees, right? If you don't have a bank account yet, and you only have, for example, equity, but how to organize that payments and how to do it in a fair way. So they very keen, the startups, with the idea to raise money in a blockchain ecosystem by introducing utility as a token utility into their model, and also organizing a payroll to their employees via crypto. So this is something that startups are very, very interested in, jumping on this opportunity. And I would like to see as a next wave that, the adoption of the non-blockchain companies that jump in on a blockchain business. And that's what I think already happening.
Absolutely. Elena's making a really good point here, is that one of the things that I've seen over the past couple of years is that blockchain and decentralized finance at this point are essentially synonymous, right? If you're building in the blockchain area, you're doing some sort of cryptocurrency-based service, right? Typically in the DeFi space. But blockchain actually has applicability far beyond this. I mean, already the government's exploring the ways of utilizing record keeping of transactions that don't need to be tokenized necessarily, but still have to use some of the services that are operating in the decentralized finance space to increase accessibility and usability for their own constituents in those nations. As that begins to rise, it's one of those things where it's the tide that lifts all boats. As governments begin to step in and utilize blockchain technology in a feasible and really user-friendly way, as will be informed through decentralized finance, and actually everybody up here is doing a great job of that as well, I think we're going to see the mindset shift, because usability is predicated by purpose. If people understand why they should use something, then they'll begin developing solutions that make that usability very straightforward. And then it begins to manifest in specific examples, be they onboarding, wallet operation, aggregation of information, all these things kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, I think it starts with purpose and then broad scale adoption. And then from there, it opens up.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall what you said about the tide raising all ships it makes sense from a project perspective, right? Launching projects and the right kind of use cases for government use, for companies to pick up. The same for like users, right? Like everybody probably remembers the first time they onboarded into their DeFi wallet. It was fucking scary, right? Like you're like, am I making a mistake? Like when I make my first trade, why is slippage? Like what do I have to do? Like all these things prevent the casual user from understanding the use cases and taking that leap. So that from the user side, making it easier, from the industrial, from the government side, making the value very apparent. There's going to be a lot of testing, a lot of failures, a lot of trial, but encouraging that as an industry is going to be very important.
Awesome, awesome. Since we're turning a little bit to DeFi, would our panelists mind giving a bit, like a little explanation to our audience on what's DeFi? Any of you?
How long you got? It's difficult, right? I think to define decentralized finance is trying to like nail Jello to a wall, because it's so amorphous, it moves so often that for what's DeFi for one person, one group, might not be DeFi for somebody at all. I think one of the hallmarks, however, to understand is it's actually this tectonic shift that's happened in the financial area that I don't actually know if a lot of people are beginning to really understand. It's that every single person here can actually have a valid impact. I don't care if they're going to be loud. They can have a valid impact on the way that finance operates. You can launch money markets. You can bring billions of dollars into open and accessible markets for everybody. Do that 20 years ago. It's absolutely impossible for anybody to do that. Now, if you learn proper code, you build a good team, you can change people's lives with money.
Also, that you launch code on the blockchain, right? And then it exists. So even if our front end goes down, people can still interact with the contracts. So it becomes a sort of a freedom, right? You go ahead and launch an exchange, and then anybody can participate. Anybody can go ahead and launch a UI to that specific contract, that computer program that lives forever on the blockchain. So that's super important for me. Like my program will just forever live on each of the different networks we're on. And so it's something that I thought was super interesting and what I like to continue to build.
Awesome, because my money is in there.
Okay. A little bit more on DeFi before we change subject. I would like to know, what do you all consider like what tools or experiences are missing from DeFi as of right now?
I feel like this is a chance for us to shill. I think DeFi's been around for like a couple years, right? And then I think a lot of people consider it to still be kind of in the primitive stages. Like most 90% of your use case is going to be trading on like an AMM. And there's certain awesome things about it, right? You can make a swap instantly. You don't have to worry about dealing with people. But then you're limited in your use cases outside of anything beyond that automated trade. So limit orders being something, perpetuals is something a lot of projects are starting to explore. The ability to bring those CEX-like experiences to DEXs, I think it's going to be a next step. Fiat onboarding is something that's always been iffy, right? Like DEXs don't want to bring on the onus of KYC and everything else, but it's preventing the casual users and retail users and new users from utilizing DEXs without going through a CEX first. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. I pass it forward. So you're saying how are our protocols helping address DeFi? How do we?
Yeah, pretty much. It was
okay.
kind of like what kind of tools, like, see, we're talking about how it's constantly moving and how it's evolving. What kind of tools can you notice that are missing as of right now? Or what experiences will you think that the user is missing as of right now?
Just say Rome Terminal.
Oh, right, yeah, really, I guess. Thank you. The Rome Terminal, I guess, is actually not a guess. It actually fundamentally is changing how decentralized finance is interacted with. Even starting relatively recently, this is something I really want to focus on, is that if you ask somebody, hey, go and try out DeFi, just go start trading, they're going to have no idea what to do. Like actually, right? Go tell your friends, hey, go do DeFi. They're like, what the hell is that, right? Uniswap? I mean, maybe. It's so more complex, it's so more diverse than just a couple large DEXs, which you're right, is that most use cases are on AMMs, and in my mind, that's actually not a shortcoming of any other technology. That's actually a lack of perception or understanding about the breadth of opportunities that are existing in the ecosystem. The Roam terminal is looking to address that by actually building a simplified terminal such that you connect one wallet and you can transact on Metis, you can transact on Ethereum and Avalanche, all from one place. We have Dex pools in there, we have Metis in there just waiting on Beefy to hop on. Okay. And then from there, you essentially have one step, one entry point into a whole new financial world.
Yeah, we also build the usability tools for Web 2. So people that have no idea what is wallet, they can log in with the username and password. So that is, I think, that the bare minimum that it needs to exist for the people that don't know. Policy, and also the one-click deployments. So something that we also envision and we're already implementing. So people that don't know what to deploy, how to program smart contract, there is a template that they can just click and deploy the smart contract.
Yeah, I think also we've seen, for tooling, we've seen a lot of really good DeFi infrastructure being built. So I think we finally have like that base layer of DeFi infrastructure, right? We have the exchanges, we have the lending protocols, then we have the next layer, right? So we're talking about composability and we're building all on top of each other. So the next layer, like something like Beefy, where we're now utilizing all of those protocols and generating yield and interest. Then we have another layer that's building on top of it. So we're starting to get a lot more intricate and we're starting to build even more sophisticated tooling. So now we're seeing, like, I think what most recently over the last year, the addition of layer 2s, layer 1s. And so now we need to adapt to all this, okay, how do we interact with all this capital on multiple chains? So we're starting to see now with Stargate, with AnyCall, cross-chain interoperability. And so what I'm really excited about is, okay, well, what's the next level? What's the next thing coming? And I think it's going to be all of this cross-chain interaction tools that we can start to use. And then all of a sudden it's okay, well, now we're utilizing all this capital on multiple blockchains and we're all kind of running seamlessly together.
And what I feel also the need, I'm fairly new DeFi user, and what I did also actually, every DeFi project that integrated on Metis, I went and I used it, right? So, and at the beginning it was nightmare for me because I didn't know what buttons to click. And it would be great, me as a target audience, right? So it would be great to have maybe clearer instructions for the newbies, and also the disclaimers to say where the things can go wrong, because yes, when we put money and the newbies put money, they're not aware of the risks. So I think it's on our plate to explain those risks to them through the visual interface.
Thank you for that. So, would you say that's probably what's keeping DeFi from getting to a larger audience, to get the next 1 million users, pretty much?
It might be very well, yes, because I send these, DeFi links to my friends as well. Not that, not an investment advice, but at least to try. And few of them actually try, but I think we can get this feedback from new people why they hesitate to use it.
Okay, so it's also interesting that DeFi is so complex and a lot of people are so scared about DeFi, but I feel like DeFi has also gained such an engaged audience, such a passionate community. Usually people that use DeFi don't go back. So why do you think this is?
That is a really solid question. I have actually never considered, why do people who step into DeFi have such a passionate engagement with the space? I mean, it's kind of like once you get that first taste, kind of like, have you guys ever seen Willy Wonka, where the kid's drinking from the chocolate river, right? And then he loves it so much he falls in, just gets sucked up. That's kind of what happens to you when you step in the DeFi space. And I think it's interesting because for me personally, it was actually an opportunity. It was a real potential to change the course of my life. I mean, I had a pretty standard job, making okay money. I mean, I could have essentially mapped out my entire life if I stuck with my job. Then I found out about 24/7 markets. I found about constant liquidity. I found about, variable market rates. Wow, I can actually utilize some intelligence, some research, and some luck to change my future financially. I'm absolutely going to take that. That being said, I don't think everybody has that kind of gung-ho, change my future type mentality. A lot of people just want to beat inflation. They just want to be able to support themselves, their families. And that's something that I do genuinely see DeFi accomplishing in the future. So perhaps it's actually the people who are dedicated to the space shifting the narrative a bit and redefining how DeFi works and communicating it's accessible and open for everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to build a little bit on what you said. The financial freedom aspect, I think a lot of us here kind of got in because we saw the potential for returns first, right? So the investment angle. I think to expand beyond that, it's going to take utility that goes beyond just like launching tokens, trading tokens, passing the hot potato between us. It's going to take that government usage, institutional usage for things that make people's lives better. And we're still exploring that. We're trying to find out what it is, whether it's gaming, whether it's government bonds, whether it's watching transparency of banking, all those things, right? And I think once we realize that, like the people will get it. Otherwise, they're just like watching us like ape into stuff and like sharing returns when the market's good and then like sharing depressing memes when things go bad. And so that's just my perspective on this.
And I was thinking maybe also we can create something like that, some indicator for the new users of the, not only the risk, kind of like reputation of the project, right? So like, let's say that every time a person successfully exits the trade or something, then the reputation of the project goes up. And when it's not successful, then it goes down. And then we can the new users can come in and say like, oh, this is like this much risk on this project, that much risk on the other one, and then project could compete as well on that. So, something like that we're building. This is called the reputation power, which is kind of digital identity. So I mean that is something that is going to be helpful on the infrastructure level.
Specifically in DeFi, I feel like it can be really helpful because it can even allow for DeFi users, Web3 users, to create a track record on DeFi, create that decentralized credit score, and habilitate things that haven't been able or haven't existed in Web3 before. Since we're talking about scalability of use in Web3, what other uses would you all consider or think about when thinking about soul-bound tokens, or kind of like a reputation power system?
A reputation system about utilization. That's actually a really good point too, is because there's a very interesting dynamic that happens within blockchain and decentralized finance, and I think everybody here is going to have a really interesting take on it. There's two sides of the coin, right? You have anonymity, then you have privacy. Anonymity is when someone doesn't know who's doing it. Privacy is when you don't know what's being done, right? And a lot of blockchains are fundamentally anonymous, but not private. Now that's debatable depending upon if you move them through centralized exchanges and you have tumblers and those kinds of things. But I'm actually not certain how that factors into the long-term growth. I think it's going to be a bit of a wild west, and it has to be a balance, because we're never going to have a time where everything you do on a blockchain is KYC. I mean, you have Monero, you have other protocols, Railgun, that purposely hide, and for good reasons too, how people transact. You don't want your friends or neighbors to see how much ETH you have in your wallet potentially, right? What's your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I mean, like everything's on chain, right? So how do you like quantify or like how do you like look at off-chain data on a reputational score, maybe on-chain? I was actually talking to a few people today that are like trying to attack, I guess, how to utilize your on-chain data in order to maybe like build a reputational score, and then that way you can kind of define credit risk. So maybe you can like loan out more capital. But yeah, it's something that hasn't been really like solved yet. But I know a lot of people are like really working on it, and there's definitely a use case for it because right now, when it comes to like lending, it's mostly like over collateralized lending, and I think people want to be able to have more access to funds, and so I think having reputational scores will be able to do that. I just don't think we're 100% there yet, but I know there's plenty of protocols that are working on something similar.
I think the credit score aspect is definitely something that can be used.
Yeah.
Even though it's like a nasty thing that we're like, oh, we don't want to bring that in Web3, but there's use cases for it. I've seen use cases for like NFT projects where it's like, hey, does this team, are they trustworthy when they're not doxxed? And you try to track the reputation, seeing where they invested, where they put their money, where they transferred. For our OTC product, we have something similar. So we can actually use a Varda wallet. So they're a integration partner of ours that gives us a reputation score. So you can see like, is this wallet, have they used like Tornado Cash too many times or something, right? Like, I think it helps with small like use cases for direct trades and borrowing, but I'm just trying to think like beyond that, like what makes most sense for something like a reputation score.
Well, protocol reputation is interesting, right? I mean, like there's companies like DeFi Safety that are trying to like build out, a variety of like, are you audited? How long has your code been in existence? Have you ever had an incident? So have you ever been exploited? And starting to give all that information out so that like not only just retail users but institutions can like look at that and say, okay, how safe is this protocol? None of those are really like, I think, 100% great yet. Even like saying, oh well, this protocol's audited, like that matters a little. It means you had another party like looking at your code. But every auditor is different, right? So maybe there should be like an assessment of like, hey, how does this auditor rank against this auditor? And then how does that rate against the protocol? So I think like maybe for like on our side, we have a risk score. So we're trying to identify if you're a user and you want to come use Beefy, we'll give you all the information, right? At least then we're at least doing the educational part of like, is the code battle tested? Has it had an audit? For this LP position, what's the representative impermanent loss risk? Is it a micro asset? So that at least when you have all of this information, maybe as an investor, because it's all in one place, it'll make it easier for you to make an intelligent decision on whatever position you want to enter.
What about if the Web 2 world brought in like Web 3 data for like your trustability? Like Equifax brought in your wallet information, like I would never get a mortgage again.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, that's a really good point, though, right? I mean, think about it, right? If everything you did on Amazon or everything you bought on eBay, right, factored in your credit score, I mean, that would be absolutely like pretty Orwellian from my opinion. But because everything on a blockchain network is open, relatively speaking, I mean, that is feasibly doable. I mean, you have projects like Raven, for example. They offer under collateralized loans on a blockchain, utilizing your in real life credit score. So banks are connecting to the blockchain and they're actually factoring in, do you pay your debts? What's your credit utilization look like? And also, what's your activity on the blockchain to actually impact a digitized or blockchain-based credit scoring system? Do I think that credit scores should exist? Honestly, no. That's just my own personal opinion. But that being said, the type of finance that we have to facilitate on a blockchain is fundamentally different from anything that we're going to see in real life. Because you have bank accounts, you have collateralized assets, you have identification for pretty much everything. And that's a great point. People want to be able to retain exposure to assets, but also leverage them for investments later on. I mean, find somebody who's going to launch an anonymous under-leveraged lending protocol, and they're going to be absolutely insane. People do that, but there is restrictions to it. So free trade in the way that it operates today is going to have, in my opinion, some marriage between the decentralized openness of blockchain and some attachment to public identity to be able to expand efficiently.
What I'm thinking now, because as the platform, I feel the need for us to get the feedback from every project in terms of the design, on how we design that, it probably will not be perfect at the beginning. That this, reputation system that will help in the business and that you can guys use on our platform, just plug in to it.
There's one other topic that comes to my mind that I wanted to touch. Since we've been talking a lot about DeFi, there's been a lot of talk, or was a lot of talk, about DeFi and DeFi 2.0. What would y'all say are the main differences between these two?
Oh, I don't know.
I actually have no idea. I'm so focused on DeFi 1.0, but I mean, I guess if I had to look at the development of DeFi 2.0, categorically speaking, what you're seeing is actually an emergence of blockchain 3.0 technology. Because it was before, they're excited about it too. Before, it was blockchain 1.0 where you had Bitcoin, right? You had a UTXO transaction management system. It's a ledger, immutable, trustless, all that fun stuff. We all know Bitcoin, right? Then you had Ethereum, right? Vitalik, that genius, created smart contracts, and now you can do decentralized compute on a global network that's also trustless. Then you see blockchain 3.0 services coming out, which is probably facilitating DeFi 2.0, where you can now launch your own blockchains inside of a network. Avalanche, has subnets. Polkadot has parachains. Cosmos has the zones as well, right? So when you can think about now entire protocols having their own subnets, or you have entire sectors of finance having their own parachains, you're actually redefining how now DeFi operates, because you can maximize the structure of a network to facilitate proper capital flow, something that you couldn't do with a couple of the initial networks.
Yeah, I would put it into 3 buckets. So like better trading tools being one, right? Optionality, cross-chain activity being another, and then the last thing being that Web 2, Web 3 kind of integration and sharing of data, sharing of use cases is going to be key.
Yeah, I always thought about it as like composability, right? So Uniswap launched, we're like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I think even Bancorp was probably before them. But then it was like all of a sudden, like Compound and Uniswap started like rewarding activity and liquidity, and it's like, oh, we can generate all these yield beyond just the trading fees. And now it's like, oh, we have all these protocols like Notional that does like fixed rates, or you got Beefy that optimizes it and auto compounds, or you got Convex that does like optimization and rewards the Convex token. And so it's like all of a sudden now you have like all of these protocols that are building on top of each other, and then it's like, then another layer gets developed, and then somebody else has another creativity part, and then it's like another layer gets developed. And so at least that's what always I thought of when I was thinking of like 2.0, was like now that you have all of this composability of everybody like building on top of each other and making really sophisticated yield products that everybody is participating in and using, and it's been super fun.
Awesome, and I think last question is probably going to be, so there has always been this talk about how Bitcoin is going to like ultrasound money and Ethereum is going to like the internet of blockchain. So how do you all think the ecosystem or the space is going to change now, kind of like after the merge, after the new status of Ethereum? What do you all think is going to be the overall change, or is it going to be any type of big change in the industry?
Well, if fees go down, that'd be great.
That would be great, yeah.
Yeah, you can count on that.
So that's amazing in its own, because if you decrease the fees, then I think you increase developer activity, right? And then if you increase developer activity, you increase innovation. So then we all of a sudden can start seeing, even beyond innovation now, even more users that want to participate in the ecosystem and play around with the different products, and more people that want to participate either on the development or the retail user side. So I think fees are important. I think speed's important. Security is important. So hopefully it fulfills all those buckets.
And decentralization, permissionless.
And decentralization permission.
Don't forget about that.
Any other answers from our panelists?
Yeah, I wonder if it has like a impact on public perception, right? Because one of the things I hear from like my friends that don't activate their DeFi lives is that Ethereum is like a scam. Like you spend so much money to make a transaction. I wonder if that'll change perception a little bit, but I still think at the base foundation, since we have so many good protocols that don't require the high fees or slow speeds or anything like that, the utility is going to be key, and like Ethereum getting better will help, but it's not going to be like a silver bullet to any kind of like massive changes. But I do believe that projects, like just incentivizing them to build more, and like just like deploying a testnet sucks, right? It costs like hundreds, thousands of dollars just to like try something. Definitely hurts innovation, but you see a lot of those strong project teams also navigating to other chains. So I think it's a toying cost in terms of what actually happens.
Yeah, these are all really great points, actually, is that when you look at being able to lower the cost of operating on a decentralized network, right? One, you actually address that challenge a lot of your friends and peers have, where, okay, why would I go and participate in this environment if the gas fee might be more than my profit margin is, right? And then when you also can optimize the speed of operation of a network, now you're sparking the interest of enterprise. You know how businesses want to come in. Okay, my clearing time is going to be faster. The confirmation time is going to be faster. When you can open up decentralization and actually you can allow more staking validators to operate, you've improved the security of a network. All these things actually merge to I think, that they do change the public perception of Ethereum, but more importantly, they change the way that blockchain's looked at. I mean, really consider what's going on with ETH 2.0 right now. Like a completely global community is universally agreeing to fundamentally change the operations of a distributed network. I mean, the ability to do that, just the thought is mammoth. Who would have thought that long ago you can have this many strangers agree on collectively improving the operations for everybody? I think that's one of the hallmarks of what's going on now, is that even though the data on a blockchain is immutable, the way the ecosystem operates is not, and that's a pretty big deal.
Thanks for that amazing answer. And well, from my side, I think those are all the questions. I don't know, the public, any questions they want to make to our panelists? Or our panelists, any questions they want to make to any other fellow panelist?
What I think, like, and this panel, I'm so glad that I'm on this panel, that I had to listen to you guys. You're so smart. You give me so many ideas. So what I think that we can organize something like, the DAO, the DEC, and put all the business minds together to improve the ecosystem. Because, yeah, we right now from our side, from the Metis team, we're trying to do our best, but really the majority of the knowledge is that you guys that hold and experience as well, and then we need to have that collaborative approach to move further. So yeah, something like that is coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts today. Thank you for the ideas.
Thank you for that, Elena. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone, for hearing. Have an amazing night.